Alright, so I want to make a video on my Turo earnings for the year of 2021. But the main thing is I wanted to actually go over all the expenses and show you those and show you what the actual profit is. Because a lot of people, they'll just show you their revenue, but that's pretty much meaningless if you don't know their expenses. And if you're like a very new Turo host or you're looking to get into Turo, you want to know what the actual profit is, right? Because it can be very misleading to just see the revenue. You don't know, you want to know how much the car payment is and all that stuff. And there's all sorts of costs and repairs that go into this. So this is my revenue right here, as you can see on Turo. So let me just show you my vehicles first. I have 4 different cars. Well, now I have 5. But I bought this 5th one. Basically, it was active in the last 2 weeks of December and probably was slightly negative in December just because I think I barely made enough to maybe pay for the registration fees and stuff like that, and didn't make enough to quite make the payment and the fees and everything. But so these 4 cars, I have a 2008 Prius, a 2009 Prius, a 2012 Prius C, and a 2008 RAV4. The RAV4 is 4-wheel drive. And all of these cars I bought with cash. One of them I got a loan. I got a loan for $6,000 from my uncle, but I'd still only paid him half of that over a year. There's no interest or anything like that. I can basically just pay him back whenever I want. So the 2008 Prius I bought for around $5,500. The 2009, that one was leather, paid about $6,000, I think. The 2012 I paid $8,000 for. The RAV4, I think after the repairs I did when I very first bought it, I think was around $8,000, I think, something like that. $8,000 or $8,500, something like that. And I can show you all the mileage that let's see. And I bought them all. Let me go over the mileage that they had when I bought them. The 2008 had around 110,000 miles. The 2009 about the same. The 2012 Prius had 66,000 miles when I bought it. The RAV4 also had about 110,000 miles, 105,000 miles, something like that. So here's the revenue from all 4 cars for the whole year is $32,194, and then $2,305 in reimbursements. Most of the reimbursements are not profit. They're mainly just bridge tolls, since I'm in Oakland, California. We're basically just surrounded by bridges in the San Francisco Bay Area. Some months I'll get like $200 in bridge tolls, but there is some profit in here, like some of the gas reimbursements, and every once in a while somebody will buy a cleaning reimbursement. So add it up. The total revenue is $34,499, and total expenses were $13,003.65. And since I paid all these cash, there's no like monthly payments in there, and I'm not taking into account the cost of the vehicles or anything like that. But I will say, since the price of cars has went up, all my cars I could easily sell for pretty much the same price that I paid for them. So there's pretty much no expense there. And let me just show you what all the expenses are like. And I include everything. Like if I buy a $5 bottle of hand sanitizer that goes in one of my cars, or spend $3 on a new aux cord, I include that in the expenses. So I've got the insurance, I've got the monthly fees for tracking devices, the cost for tracking devices if I bought them in this year, everything. So here's the month of January, and I'll click on each one of these documents for each month. I won't go over all of them because it'll just be annoying, but the tolls, and let's see, there's the tolls for this one. I want to make the tracking device fees monthly. I use Bouncy trackers, $27 a month for the 4 cars. The insurance was $86.23 for the 4 cars for a month. I just have the basic insurance on them, obviously, so it costs like $20 to $25 per month. And once you add on a second car to your insurance policy, because I have a separate car that I use for my personal car, that cost me about $70 a month for that. Once you add on more cars, they're incredibly cheap. Like as you can see here, they're all less than $25 a month, you know. So those are the same for each month. The insurance for the cars and the tracking device, like data fees. The tolls are going to be different for each month. And I included like little tools I have to buy. You know, bought like gloves, rubbing alcohol. I bought a catalytic converter shield for one of my Priuses that keeps, well, it's supposed to keep the catalytic converters stolen, although I actually just got one stolen even with the shield. Lockbox that I use to keep the keys in, and I included all the gas and everything like that. So for January, the expenses were $445.93, and I'm just gonna go through. I'm just gonna show you each month, but not go over them. So you can pause the video if you want and just kind of look at everything. Total for that month was $190. These expenses here are not including the car expenses. So I do the car expenses separately so that if I want to, I can analyze each car myself and see how much the maintenance costs. Everything except for, I started doing like the oil just in the monthly expenses, but I do oil changes myself, and it cost me about $25 per oil change, including the filter. So for the first few months, you might see I might have the oil changes in with the expenses individually for each car. But later in the year, because I'll just buy like some bulk oil and like bulk filters and stuff all at once. So I'll just put them in with the normal monthly expenses. So here's March, total of $328, total of $519, $517, June $320, July $623, $316, September is $764, October is $718, $572. Lastly, December was $957. Why was this month so much? Well, I have the Civic I financed, so I have a payment of $216. That's part of the reason. And then I bought a new bouncy tracker for $77, and the splitter that I used for them for $11. So that was kind of new stuff. I finally registered my business as an LLC, so that should start at the beginning of 2022, so that was $154. Let me just show you the earnings that each car brought in. Honestly, I think my best performing car was my cheapest one too, and partly because it's the cheapest. So this 2008 Prius here I bought for like $5,500, and I think it has the least amount of like maintenance expenses for that car too for the year. I didn't have to do any maintenance on this car other than tires and new front brakes. I did the brakes myself, so it's super cheap. It's like $100 in parts or something like that. So this one got $8,565 in revenue, and let me just bring up the maintenance for the year total. This is not including all the oil changes, and the mileage. These cars get driven a crazy amount of miles. So this car right here actually got driven over 30,000 miles in 1 year. About 32,000 miles. And the total maintenance for this was $940 I spent. And you can pause it and look through that stuff if you want. So for a car that I only paid $5,500 for, to be bringing in like over $1,000, like around $1,000 in revenue for some months is pretty insane, I think. Here's a 2009, brought in $6,156. This one was really low because I had to replace the hybrid battery, and I messed around with trying to replace it myself, which I spent forever on. So it was down a couple months, and it ended up not working anyway. But and then this last month it was also down because the battery I got has a lifetime warranty, but they kept having problems with their machines that bounced the cells, so I had to get it replaced again. So it was down for like 3 weeks or something at the end of the year. So I brought in $6,100. Let's see the expenses for that car. This one's gonna be a lot because I had to buy a hybrid battery. If you're in California though, you can get them for $1,400. They actually gave it to me for $13,050, but the taxes in where I live are almost 10%, the sales tax. So this had a maintenance cost of about $2,000 for the year. This one got driven about 20,000 miles. And you can add in, the oil gets changed every 5,000 miles. So if the oil changes aren't on here, you just add in $25 per 5,000 miles. So this has about $100 in oil changes can get added on. Here's the 2012 Prius C. This one got $8,700, and this one got driven about 30,000 miles and about $1,200 in maintenance fees. The main expenses are just had to get a new 12-volt battery. I got floor mats. This one didn't come with like the nice rubber like Toyota brand ones, and I would recommend getting like the all-weather ones made by your brand of car. They just make a big difference. They make the car look so much nicer. They're really durable, easy to clean. Yeah, about 4 tires for it that year. And then let's see, the RAV4 has an insane amount of expenses. I actually had to replace the engine right after I first bought it. I didn't know this, but Toyota messed up their engines for a few years. So if you're looking at like a 2007 or 2008 RAV4 that's a 4-cylinder, you might not want to buy that unless the problem has been fixed. They had a problem where they were going through a lot of oil. So I realized after I bought it, luckily I checked my oil between every trip. It was going through like 1.5 quarts of oil in like 300 miles. And it was because Toyota just messed up the engine. So I had to replace the engine. Did it myself, but it was like... And I replaced the engine in 2020, but it was like $1,200 for the engine. And then somehow the transmission broke like 2 weeks after the engine or something like that. So let's see, this car brought in $8,100. And the expenses for this are really high, because for some reason with the 4-cylinder 4-wheel drive transmissions for these cars, the transmissions are really expensive. I think just because they're pretty rare, because most of the 4-cylinders are not in 4-wheel drive. So I had to spend like $1,200 just on the transmission, when like a 2-wheel drive transmission I think would be about $500 or something. And I replaced that myself, so it's just the cost for the part. Yeah, so the expenses, repair expenses for this were $2,790. This got driven about 25 or 26,000 miles. So that's about $125 in oil changes. And yeah, as you can see here, like and besides the transmission, I had to buy all this transmission fluid and crap and pay the dealer to reset the computer to get it to work right. So I mean, honestly, ended up paying like $1,800 or something in total to replace the transmission, even though I did it myself. So the hybrid battery and the transmission were just an insane amount of repair expenses. And now I just want to go over kind of what I learned about pricing and stuff, because I definitely could have brought in more revenue. So as you can see here, that my earnings jumped way up, like about $1,000 per month in July. But the thing is so we got like a huge surge in business, but I think that started in about May actually. And so the main reason this price jump was because people actually started traveling again. Travel restrictions were lifted, and I guess there's always a big jump in the rental car in like business during summer months, because people are just traveling more. But when I first started this, about 2 years ago, the very beginning of 2020. I basically got one car right before the coronavirus started. So really all I knew was this like horrible market during coronavirus, and I had my prices just priced super low, and I didn't realize how much higher I could have made my daily prices. So when business started picking up, I started slowly raising my prices up, but I was getting a lot of future bookings, like a month or so in advance. So I had all these future bookings totally booked up from the super low prices I had when business was super slow and bad because of coronavirus. And then part of it is just the way that I was doing my pricing wasn't quite ideal. So starting in July, I finally figured out how high I could actually have my prices. And that's when I started getting a lot more earnings. And it's crazy because September was actually when people started to see their profits go down in Turo, at least in other areas, like other areas in the or other cities in the United States. That was actually my top earning month, and I think I just kind of got my pricing down that month. I think part of it was because I might have had quite a bit of deliveries I had that month too, where the deliveries they include that in the earnings. But when I do deliveries with my cars, most of that I charge a lot for them, but most of that extra cost just goes to me paying for lifts to go back and forth. So, but that was a top month right there. And as you can see, even in December, I kept that price going. And from what I've realized with the pricing, what you want to do is just keep your prices really high and then adjust them like a week or two into the future. You can lower it if you need to. But if you're getting a lot of bookings like a month or so into the future, you have your prices too low, which is what I was getting before I figured this out. You want to just be getting like very little amount of future bookings. And then if you're getting a lot of future bookings, you just have your prices too low. So you want your prices to be high where you're basically just getting a little bit of bookings in the future, but not much. And that was the main thing that I realized from doing this. So yeah, really May and June could have been up over $3,000 for those months too, but I didn't know how to do the pricing yet. So I could have easily had a couple more $1,000s in with my earnings this year. And maybe even the previous months could have been better too if I had just known how to price like that.